Good evening. I'm Dan Rather, and this is Red Square in the heart of Moscow. Tonight, we want you to share the experience of 9 reporters and their production crews inside the Soviet Union. The times seem to be changing here. New words are on everyone's lips.
Glasnost.
Which, loosely translated, means openness, candor, self-criticism. And perestroika.
Perestroika. Good. Да.
Restructuring, economic reform. Tonight, you will see people and places never before shown on American television.
It's the first time Western journalists have been on board a Soviet warship of any kind with a camera.
You know, a lot of Americans have no idea that you have drug problems in the Soviet Union.
Unfortunately, that's the fact.
This is a society where husbands are banned from the delivery room. But as part of the new openness, the Soviets agreed to give us a rare look inside at the birth of a baby here.
There is a new American embassy building.
They say the whole thing is a bug.
Maybe.
Yuri and Galya's problems are in the mill. Those big reforms haven't reached them yet.
They promised to make changes. Well, they've begun, but it's not enough.
Meet Boris Nikolaevich Yeltsin, Gorbachev's man in Moscow.
Why don't you buy the meat?
You consider this meat? It's fat and bones.
The concert stage of Frontline in Gorbachev's battle for Glasnost.
CBS News has gained unprecedented access here. That does not mean total access or total freedom, but what you're about to see represents the most open examination of Soviet life my colleagues and I have ever been allowed to attempt. What is this glasnost? You be the judge. As for the next 2 hours, you experience life inside Mikhail Gorbachev's Soviet Union. 7 days in May.
The Republic of Estonia, the city of Tallinn. And the band is playing an old American march by John Philip Sousa.
This is the part of the Soviet Union that is most influenced by the West. It's also the leading edge of Gorbachev's economic reforms.
When I first started, I was a pioneer. But now people are coming to ask me how to do it.
Meet Gorbachev's hope for a better Soviet Union, Syria Schmidt, a pioneer because Gorbachev's economic reforms allow her to run her own business. She rents the equipment from the state, but beyond that, the profits are hers, and so is her time.
What are the benefits of the new system?
Before, everything was decided by management. Now I decide my hours for myself. I would never want to go back to the old system now.
Another pioneer, Peter Podelsky, driving his private cab for profit in his spare time. He's making 50% more money.
It is hard to get a taxi. You have to wait in line. But now that there are private taxis, there are more cars and better service.
A few experiments in private enterprise, just scratching the surface.
We have still to stand in lines to get some service. Very often service quality is very lousy. So
Martin Kusk, just another long-suffering Soviet consumer. A little uneasy about talking to us with the camera on. A few years ago, it wouldn't have been safe talking like this.
for instance, I hate standing in lines. Organically, I hate it.
That's what gave Victor Rodin the idea of opening up this place. It's been called the Soviet McDonald's. Fast food, no long waiting in line, but instead of serving hamburgers, it's Soviet meat pies.
We pay rent to the state for everything you see here. And then what is left, we split up between the workers.
Have you ever seen a real McDonald's?
McDonald's.
Just recently, I read about this McDonald's. And as a specialist in the field for a long time, I can imagine how it works. I could imagine it intuitively. I think it is a well-thought-out organization. But as far as the selection goes, a hamburger is a hamburger.
McDonald's.
Gorbachev's new Soviet businessman. Profits, better service. It sure sounds like capitalism. It sounds like capitalism to the local official in charge of approving these new businesses, too. What's more, he admits it.
The main goal is to provide better service. The means don't really matter. If the means are capitalistic, then we are prepared to use them. It's not important what you call it.
It used to matter what you called it. Not long ago, he'd be in Siberia for saying that. Of course, private enterprise has always existed in the Soviet Union, underground, where it's still thriving.
The police are looking for me, and if they take me, I have 2 or 3 years.
We couldn't get his name. We were surprised he'd even talk to us. His business is the black market.
Is there anything in the Soviet Union that you can't buy if you have enough money? Sounds like you can buy almost anything.
Oh, awfully, yes, of course. You can buy what you want if you have any money.
Anything?
Anything. What do you want?
A Mercedes.
Please, I only pay for it. Gold, drugs, brilliance, all what you want.
How much can you make on a good day here working the black market?
60 and 100 rubles a day.
You make 100 rubles in a day?
Yeah.
When in the factory you would make 200 in a month?
Yeah.
No wonder you're on the black market.
His official job is Boy Scout instructor. It's too soon, and there are too few of these new businesses to tell if they can improve things. Victor Rudin's customers are happy not to wait in line, but he's the only one in town. If you want fast food, you have to eat Victor's meat pies. As for Syria, her customers are also happy not to have to wait for an appointment.
The laboratory of private enterprise. But this place not only doesn't look like the rest of the Soviet Union, it's not typical of the Soviet Union. The attitudes and the values here reflect the days when Estonia was an independent country before World War II. It will be a major indication of Gorbachev's success or failure, not by how well this model does here, but by how well it spreads into the rigid and inefficient heartland of Russia.
It's been one of the best-kept secrets in the Soviet Union. It was something the government didn't talk about. Certain things, after all, only happened in the decadent world of capitalism. Well, guess what?
Было нападение, то есть была кража квартирная.
It's an apartment robbery.
Золотые серьги.
Well, they have taken the jewelry,
Золотые сережки.
the earrings, gold chain, necklace,
Значит, кольцо.
ring,
Обручальное кольцо тоже.
wedding ring too.
Практически все драгоценности, которые были у этой семьи.
Practically, they have taken everything what the family had.
Yes, they have a crime problem here in the Soviet Union. And finally, the authorities are publicly admitting it. Major Nodargir Gadza is a district police chief in the city of Tbilisi, 1,000 miles south of Moscow. While we were at his police station, they brought this man in, a drug addict and suspected drug pusher. When the police caught him, they say, he was carrying this package.
What is it?
Coconut.
Opium.
Opium?
Coconut.
Opium.
Poppy?
Мак називається.
Мак.
It's opium poppy.
Ашкарат злери пирони байна его, сулейвата законы приватат ганутады.
He says he's been using drugs for 22 years, since he was 15. For years, the Soviet authorities gloated. Drugs were a symptom of the decay of Western values. America and Europe had a monopoly on drug addicts. By the way, if he's convicted only of possession, he faces up to 3 years in prison. Pushers, however, face up to 15 years behind bars. What we've just seen is, by Soviet standards, rather remarkable. Not that the Soviet Union has a drug problem, although that's been one of those nasty little secrets the authorities never like to talk about. What's so remarkable is that they actually let us tape the arrest and interrogation, knowing full well we were going to show it to an American audience. You know, a lot of Americans have no idea that you have drug problems in the Soviet Union.
К сожалению, это факт.
Unfortunately, that's the fact.
Я, например, как человек,
We do have a drug problem. I think this is the major problem in my country. And we have to pay attention to the drug problem, or else in 10 years or so, we will face disaster.
What's happening here?
повесился гласность.
We don't have to hide anything from our people. People should know we have a drug problem. We have pushers and we have drug addicts.
This is a new beginning, isn't it?
Это прекрасно.
I think it's not a new beginning, but it's a remarkable new beginning.
They anoint themselves with orange tanning oil and perform bodybuilding routines to the sounds of Western rock. A crowd could only applaud like this for something like this. In a town like this, Lubertsy, a rough, tough suburb 12 miles from Moscow, an industrial, working-class kind of town. If Archie Bunker had been born a communist, he could have lived in Lubertsy. The problem is that Lubertsy's image has recently turned violent. In fact, in Moscow now, the very word Lubers means street gang.
This preoccupation with bodybuilding has earned the Lubers a bad reputation. According to sensational articles in the Soviet press, every Friday and Saturday night, bands of Lubers go into Moscow to beat up punks and hippies, anyone who shows themselves to be under the influence of Western culture.
There are Soviet punks and hippies. There are leather-wearing, heavy metal fans the Russians call the metalists. These are the people who see Lubers as the enemy. Sergei Troitsky is a metalist. In the more open Soviet Union, Sergei no longer fears the police, he fears the Lubers.
During the concerts, the guys from Lubritsy arrived. There were about 300 to 400 people. They started huge fights, cracked people's skulls, broke their arms and legs. In one word, horrible things go on.
In Lubertsy, they deny the town is the source of anti-Western gang violence. They blame this reputation on a new sensational Soviet press. They see themselves as the Soviet Union's first victims of glasnost.
There are hooligans in any city, and there are hooligans in Lubritsy too. 15 and 16-year-olds sometimes start the trouble, but that doesn't mean they're from Lubritsy. They may say that they're from Lubritsy because it gives them more clout. They'd say, we're from Lubritsy, just to seem more important.
There is some truth to Lubertsy's complaint. At an outdoor disco in Moscow's Gorky Park, This group of dancing teenage girls called themselves Lubers. The boys dancing in the bleachers were Lubers. As if calling yourself a Luber has become the calling card for any 15-year-old who needs to sound tough. You were from Lubbertsy?
Да.
Lubbertsy, да? But we also found Lubers near Gorky Park who weren't nearly so innocent. There are bands of teenagers out looking for fights with medalists. They see the medalists as Western threats to the Soviet way of life.
They wear chains and bracelets with spikes that big. It's not decent.
Who needs all that in the Soviet Union? All those hairdos. It's incomprehensible. But we Lubers, we're straight. We want to free Moscow from people like that. They're useless.
These guys ran by us just a minute ago saying, down with medalists, down with punkers. In other words, down with anything Western. But this woman is confronting them.
But why fight?
To teach them a lesson.
Why did you decide that you had the right to change them?
Do you think they'll listen to you?
Why did you decide to do this yourself?
Up with Lubritsi and all the gangs.
Up with Moscow and all the normal people.
The irony here is that the Lubers and the medalists have something essential in common. Both iron pumping and heavy metal music used to be underground activities, scorned as too self-oriented and decadent to fit in a socialist society. The Lubers and the medalists are giving the Soviet Union a lesson in freedom. Now that they are free to exist, they are also free to collide.
This portion of the Soviet Union, 7 Days in May, is sponsored by Merrill Lynch. At Merrill Lynch, we believe your world should know no boundaries.
To know no boundaries, to let yourself run free. To know no boundaries is what the world should be. You can see so much in life, so much in life to live. Now you see what the world can be. To know no boundaries.
Wherever there are investment opportunities, Merrill Lynch is there with the help you need to make the most of them. Because at Merrill Lynch, we believe your world should know no boundaries.
Now you see what the world can be. To know no boundaries.
It's a question of taste. If you had your pick of 2 cereals, both with 100% nutrition, would you pick the one with just one kind of flake? Or Kellogg's Just Right with 3 different kinds of flakes, plus hearty rolled oats, plump raisins, sweet juicy dates, and crisp crunchy nuts? You're not alone. 3 out of 4 people picked Just Right over every other high vitamin cereal. There was no question of nutrition. It was simply a question of taste. Kellogg's Just Right with fruit or all grain.
Get your spaghetti ready. Get ready for new Ragu Thick and Hearty Spaghetti Sauce. Our thickest, heartiest sauce ever. Made with lots of plump, juicy tomatoes, special seasonings and spices for a zesty, full-bodied tomato taste. Now your spaghetti's ready. New Ragu Thick and Hearty. Our thickest, heartiest sauce ever.
Morning on Soviet Minesweeper 375. Lieutenant Victor Pushin is ready to greet his crew.
Здравствуйте, товарищи.
We asked for a glimpse of what it's like on a Soviet warship. This is what we got. 10 men on a ship built to seek out and destroy harbor mines left over from World War II. But this is serious glasnost for the Soviet Navy. After decades of secrecy and suspicion, it's the first time Western journalists have been on board a Soviet warship of any kind with a camera. A few observations. On a typical day, these men wouldn't be wearing their dress blues. The equipment on the ship is old and would be obsolete in many navies. The Soviet Navy eats well, usually without the linen tablecloth.
This is an exercise. These are emergency drills. They've been doing these for our benefit, showing us what the ship can do. And they're 10 very well-rehearsed men. The Admiral was here yesterday to make sure everything checked out. And that includes the paint they've just put all over this ship in the last few days. You can see some of the paint still sticking to the shoes of the sailors. In fact, there's so much paint on this ship, it would probably sink if it weren't tied to the pier. The pier itself has been painted.
It's difficult to say how efficient this crew is because they aren't taking the ship out to sea. But it is known that because the Soviet Navy relies heavily on young, inexperienced men, it has problems.
The living quarters are down here. They're very cramped on a ship like this. They also serve as the place where the sailors get their weekly political lesson. Every Soviet ship has a political officer, a zampolit. In a Western Navy, he'd be the chaplain. Only here, the religion is communism, Leninism, and the motherland. And the Bible is the collected works of Lenin.
Comrade, Commander, the crew has been assembled for the political lesson.
Okay, comrades, today's political lecture will deal with two topics. V.I. Lenin on friendship and then related materials of the 27th Communist Party Congress.
They're told about Gorbachev's arms proposals here, that the Soviets are peacemakers, that the U.S. is reluctant to disarm.
Can you guarantee that the U.S. won't attack us tomorrow? If so, let's saw the ship in half and I'll find another job.
These men had no choice about serving in the Navy. The crew on this ship, like the crews on all Soviet ships, is composed of draftees. And many of them come from the Soviet heartland, where patriotism is expected to be stronger. An area where they're further away from Western influence and Western propaganda.
I wouldn't consider myself a real man if I didn't do my service in the Navy. Also, military service is a sacred duty.
Lieutenant Pushin lives off base in this Leningrad apartment building at number 12 Grumov Street. It's a two-bedroom place, which he shares with his wife, their newborn son, his mother, and his niece. Lieutenant Pushin's mother, Anna, is the real head of the household. She survived the siege of Leningrad in World War II. What do you think about your son being in the military?
Я очень довольна. Ну, почему? Потому что... Oh, I'm very pleased with that.
Да.
Why? So he could any time defend us from invasion.
Минуту защитить нас всех.
If it comes, where would it come from?
I can't be sure, but I think that it will probably be you.
That night, Lieutenant Pushin and his wife were given tickets to the Kirov Theater, a rare opportunity for them, no doubt arranged for our benefit, and under the ever-present supervision of a senior political officer. On stage, Peter the Great, a new opera with more references to perestroika than a Gorbachev speech. What the Soviet Navy gave us was a show, but it wasn't all song and dance. There was a message, too. They would like us to believe and seem eager to prove that their country, which spends a massive amount of its resources to arm itself against the West, really wants better relations with America.
Old Moscow. But new times.
Tell me honestly, any difference in the supply of vegetables between yesterday and today?
Well, everything's all right. I'd just like to see more people around.
I'm not asking you about the people, but the supply of food.
It's almost always like this.
Every day, there'll be an inspection by the city party committee. So just let the managers try to have fewer supplies and get away with it.
Meet Boris Nikolaevich Yeltsin, Gorbachev's man in Moscow, the powerful head of the city's all-powerful Communist Party. He's a tough-talking, tennis-playing, thoroughly modern Marxist. At 56, one of the young firebrands. He also has a lot of nerve enough to be the first Politburo member ever to show an American news crew around his office.
We try to organize it so all the phones will not ring simultaneously here. Only one line comes in here directly.
Is that what I think it is?
Go ahead, read it.
The name on the direct line says it all. Gorbachev. It's been a year and a half since this outsider, a construction worker from the Ural Mountains, showed up in Moscow's fast lane. He became a one-man SWAT team at food markets, denouncing the poor quality. He saw whole families wedged into tiny apartments while housing officials were lining their pockets.
And one day, when he decided to see how the buses worked, he discovered that a lot of them weren't operating, and the ones that were packed like sardine cans. After 2 hours of riding around the city of Moscow, he said, no wonder nobody wants to come to work.
What would have happened to you during the Brezhnev era if you had said the things you are saying now?
For brave expressions, I could have been fired. I would lose my job quite possibly. For sure.
His first few months in office, 84 party officials were fired, hundreds of food store managers were arrested, and the head of the fanciest food store was found guilty of gross corruption and executed. Do you ever worry that maybe you'll go too far?
These thoughts do occur.
Where does most of the opposition come from? Does it come from the bureaucracy, or is there opposition in the Politburo itself?
I would say, indisputably, there is no organized opposition. There are some people who don't support Reconstruction. The ones who have been forced to work harder. Reconstruction may have chased them from their cozy, comfortable chairs, forced them to think faster, more creatively. If the guy is idle, if the guy is a bum, he's not going to be for Reconstruction.
Yeltsin may be right that the opposition isn't organized, but it does exist, even within the government, where some of his colleagues are convinced that once you unleash a force like Glasnost, you lose control. Yeltsin makes it clear that the Communist Party is not about to lose control. The intellectuals have wondered how far Glasnost will really let them go. From now on, can they really write anything they want to write?
The first phase is behind them. They criticized everybody and everything. What does it mean? Does it mean he can publish? Write anything that comes to mind? That is not freedom. That is anarchy. There will be no limitation on talented works, but there will be limitations for rubbish. Rubbish will be forbidden from publication. Nobody needs rubbish. We are reconstructing slowly, and we are reconstructing with you. Let's take responsibility on ourselves.
Americans still remember Mr. Khrushchev saying, "We will bury you." Do you still believe it?
Nobody's saying that now. It's difficult for all of us. Not everything works now. There are shortcomings, and lots of things are not working.
He's like any local ward politician on a Saturday afternoon. The surprising thing is, the people here don't seem to be afraid to complain to him that the cabbages are too small or the tomatoes are too expensive.
You welcome the criticism,
Значит, вы приветствуете критику?
even of you.
Даже если вас...
Certainly.
Конечно.
Certainly, I welcome.
You don't seem too sure.
Но не очень уверенно говорите.
А почему? Потому что, конечно...
Well, I grew up in the past,
Во-первых, я же тоже
in
вырос в
an
той
era of
эпохе.
stagnation. And in a time when that kind of thing wasn't evident. I was kind of an accomplice of the time. And so I need to reconstruct myself also. And to say today that I love criticism like I love a woman would be nonsense. I am worried. I don't like it. I need to learn to love. And everyone has to learn how to live in a time of criticism and self-criticism under the conditions of that kind of democracy. We have forgotten how to live under such conditions.
And you're happier because you can criticize?
Yes, it is necessary. It is vital. The working man has to be able to share in the openness.
Yeltsin's been out on the streets hundreds of times. This day at Ramniki Korpus, a new residential community in the south of Moscow. 5 hours, 7 stops, and 7 free-form gripe sessions.
Why don't you buy the meat? Don't you usually have meat?
You consider this meat? It's fat and bones. Look, it's all bones in this package of meat. I'm not a housewife, but if I was a housewife, why would I buy this?
Why are people complaining about how the meat is cut? You're a specialist.
Look at this. Isn't this good meat?
Well, I don't know. You're the specialist, not me. People are complaining.
So we decided to come back today, 5 days after Yeltsin was here, to see how the meat counter looked. There was some meat here when we arrived, but we weren't allowed to take pictures until they brought out several trays more. And I guess for Americans, the question always comes back to this. They can't believe that at some point you don't sit in the privacy of your room and look at America and the Western nations and say, capitalism may be selfish and it may be unequal, but it works.
Perhaps I thought about it.
Have you?
Of course. Of course I think about it.
And that's what makes a new leader like Boris Yeltsin at first seem so seductive. The words are the ones Westerners love to hear. Reasonable words and familiar ones like openness, criticism, democracy. What do you say to those Americans who think glasnost is the beginning of the Soviet Union's recognition that socialism was a mistake?
I have pity on them. They are misguided. In time, they will have to backtrack and change their views. I'm confident of that.
So Westerners have to remember glasnost is just a means to an end, and the end is no different than before.
It started over 2 decades ago. The finest varietal grapes were planted. The world's most costly vineyards. The harvest begins in the Napa-Sonoma growing regions. The greatest winemaking facilities in the world. Cork from Portugal. Oak Cellars. Gallo's first vintage-dated wines. Acclaim. In just 20 short years, the maker of America's most popular wine has become America's most honored winery. Today's Gallo. All the best a wine can be.
Freedom. It's becoming what you want to be. Doing what you want to do. Involving yourself in what you value most. Merrill Lynch can help you achieve that freedom. We believe the client always comes first, so we can help you find the best choices from our world of opportunities. Because at Merrill Lynch, we believe your world should know no boundaries.
Are you still collecting the same old stuff? We'll start something new with stamps. Especially now with our new American wildlife issue. 50 beautifully detailed animal, bird, reptile, and insect stamps, each commemorating America's natural wildlife heritage. Now at your post office. And remember, unlike some things, once you collect stamps, you can enjoy their beauty forever.
This CBS News special will continue.
Thursday, he had the world in the palm of his hand.
I want this fight just one more.
Now, to keep his dream alive, he has to face his worst nightmare.
I'll bust you up. Go for it.
Sylvester Stallone, Talia Shire, Burgess Meredith, Carl Weathers, and Mr. T star in Rocky III, Thursday.
This is CBS.
This is the time of life you've had your heart set on for years. And in one moment, your heart can keep you from ever being able to enjoy it. At the West Penn Cardiac Life Center, we can attack heart disease before it attacks you with advanced programs in diagnosis, treatment, and rehabilitation. Don't let heart disease cheat you. See your doctor or call West Penn Hospital. Friends for life.
Looking for the right car at the best price? It's yours. At Toyota dealers now. Like saving on Toyota's lowest price Tercel? It's yours. Want Corolla value? How about the low-price Corolla FX? It's yours. Toyota dealers have terrific values on every car, and they're yours for the asking. How about Camry reliability and resale value #1 in its class? So get to your Toyota dealer, find your car, make your deal, and it's yours.
A rapist is posing as a policeman in Jefferson Borough. The story on the update.
The Soviets take a lot of things seriously, including sports, and they don't let the weather get in the way. Today, it's raining. Temperatures down in the 40s. It's cold out here. Yet, at this enormous outdoor swimming pool in the middle of Moscow, well, take a look. Now, the other day, it was sunny, warm, temperature in the high 70s, low 80s. A perfect day for this.
You'd think these kids would be so grateful when winter finally ends around here, they'd be happy to put their skis away for a while. But they'd rather get a jump on the competition. So, with the help of some straw mats to slide on and pine needles to land in, they're off. These boys told us they'd like to become champions so they can compete in America. A country they know about from Soviet television.
Много бездомных. Много homeless people. Homeless people. There are many homeless people.
Террористов много.
There are many terrorists.
Голосование было.
They have elections where blacks aren't allowed to vote, only whites, and not all of them. They hate blacks. They treat them like animals, not people.
If that's what you've seen on TV, why do you want to go there?
We think there are cities where there are good people and no fighting.
It's as if his philosophy were etched in stone, just like the old man himself. The press, Vladimir Lenin said, is the sharpest weapon of the Communist Party. A television station in Tbilisi, in the Soviet Republic of Georgia. His name is Tengiz Solzhenishvili, a reporter whose stories run on the Soviet Union's version of the National Evening News.
Я думаю, что это прекрасно.
In this electronic age of information, a TV reporter in the Soviet Union with his mini-cam crew looks like a TV reporter any place in the United States. But in the Soviet Union, historically, news was what the government wanted it to be, and bad news was usually off limits, unless, of course, it happened someplace else. Just listen to this.
Disasters that happened, for instance, in the mountains of Soviet Georgia were never reported here, because all earthquakes, all fires, all disasters happened only in the United States.
That's why when Tengiz was allowed to file this report a few months ago, it was, in its own way, extraordinary. A story about an avalanche killing 100 people in the mountains.
В Местийском районе 26 человек, еще трое в Лентехском, Схинвальском и Душецком районах.
Historically, the Soviet people have been kept in the dark. So now that Gorbachev has said, let there be light, how much light can there really be?
This is an example of the importance of glasnost. Before it was rare that we could show a report like this on television, like a natural disaster, river floods or avalanches. And we never mentioned death, the people killed in these disasters. Now we can put it on television, on the local news as well as nationwide.
Do you do the shopping for the family? Normally? In the afternoon, we go to the market. Who does the dishes?
Well, I don't know who does it, but I don't do that.
Magic. It just gets cleaned by magic. The contradictions leap out at you in a place like this. How can a country have 19th century marketplaces and 21st century missiles at the same time? For the record, the Soviet authorities let us go any place we wanted and shoot anything we wanted. But when we came across these school children, we had to wonder, what kind of new openness should anyone really expect from a people indoctrinated from kindergarten? That the state comes first, that individualism, especially in children, is practically a crime. And what should they expect from television, today's most powerful weapon of the Communist Party, in Gorbachev's brave new world? We Americans think that if you criticize the wrong person too harshly, Siberia.
Это стереотип. В отношении себя я могу...
It's a stereotype. But let me explain it this way. I know about 10,000 anecdotes and jokes, political jokes, and I've told my jokes everywhere. Yet I've been sent to Siberia only once. My television station sent me there to do a story about the Siberian Railroad.
So, is there a new openness in the Soviet press and television? The answer is definitely yes. But let's not forget that in the Soviet Union, the press is not a watchdog of government. It's a part of government, a tool of government. So the jury is still out on what will happen to the first Soviet reporter who puts glasnost to the real test, who digs too deeply into the wrong area, who criticizes too harshly the wrong people. That's when we, and more importantly, the Soviet people, will learn how much openness is too much openness. After all, what the state giveth, the state can just as easily taketh away.
You talk about glasnost at all on this program?
No, not this time. It's a kind of a magazine. It's not 60 minutes, but it is certainly 45 minutes.
Meet the man who carries Gorbachev's message to the world. He is Gennady Gerasimov, official spokesman for the Soviet Foreign Ministry, and by far the Soviets' most effective image maker.
And over there is a new American embassy building. Full of bugs, they say. They say.
They say?
They say.
And you say?
They haven't found any. They didn't produce any evidence.
They say the whole thing is a bug.
Maybe.
A maverick? Not in the least.
This is the most interesting book I've read recently.
World Weapon Database? No, I say I missed it. Soviet missiles. The whole volume is Soviet missiles? You guys have a lot.
How many of them we have?
You guys have a lot of missiles.
Yes.
A lot to disarm, huh?
Yes, and we are ready to disarm, as you know.
Anytime.
Anytime on a reciprocal basis.
We're spending billions and billions of dollars on both sides for weapons.
We are ready to stop it tomorrow.
You've been to Japan?
5 times.
You look at the level of living, the standard of living.
I always cite Japan as an example.
In a country like Japan where they don't spend that kind of money on weapons.
They're wiser.
Look at Switzerland.
They're even more wiser. They don't fight.
Do you hear a debate in the Soviet Union today about your presence, your military presence in Afghanistan? Do people talk about it on television, on your program, for example?
Of course they talk about Afghanistan, but on TV they talk about the terms of withdrawal.
Do you have, for example, when the United States was in Vietnam, you had a range of opinion from people who said, bomb Hanoi, to people who said, we have no right to be in that country. And you heard that opinion on television, radio, you saw it in the press, virtually every day. Do you have that kind of debate over Afghanistan?
I'm sure we have it in private.
But you said in private. What about in public?
In public, we talk about the terms of withdrawal from Afghanistan.
But you see, as I see it, this is a fundamental difference between our two countries. You have that debate in private. We had that debate in public.
We have now debate in public on many controversial issues which were not discussed 2 years ago. We are still a little bit shy in the field of foreign policy.
Gerasimov spent 5 years in New York as a columnist for the Soviet press. No Soviet official is said to be more familiar with America than he is.
We have what we call the American dream. People can be...
What is the dream?
People can make it. People can be born...
But here can also make
People can be born into poverty. They can escape poverty. They can attain in a material sense.
Suppose you live in South Bronx. Can you escape poverty in South Bronx? I have read many articles written by your journalists that it's next to impossible to escape this circle of poverty.
But it is possible.
Next to impossible.
Listen, I grew up in poverty.
You made it?
No one in my family had gone to college. My mother never made more than $35 a week during her working lifetime.
Did you prove nothing?
Yet it proves that the American dream is possible.
I can tell you my own story. It's almost the same.
But listen,
why?
There is a large gap between the rich and poor.
Why are they saying that blacks are second-class citizens?
Because in many cases they are.
They are. Why?
That's the nature.
Of opportunity.
Listen, does it say anything to you that there's a long waiting line to get into the United States and a real short line to get into here? What does that say to you?
It says to me that your country has the reputation of the land of opportunity, and those who are industrious enough can make it. But the ideal is to make money to get rich in your rat race.
Do we have something to learn from each other?
Of course we do.
What can we learn from you?
How to do away with slums, and we want to learn from you how to do away with lines.
With?
Lines.
What else can we learn?
Well, I would like for our workers to learn to work as hard as your workers do. One of the reasons that you have more and better goods is that we do not work hard. That's that simple.
Why?
I lived in the States, and when we had our apartment repainted, it took one worker 1 day. He came completely equipped and repainted the whole thing. And here there will be 3 or 4 people walking around for a week. So this is what I want to learn from you.
And what?
American enterprise.
And what do we need to learn from the Soviet people?
Well, maybe you need a little bit of a more philosophical approach to life. Because your philosophy is the philosophy of success. And success only in terms of money, which you can get by when you're involved in this rat race. You have more stress in your society, more tension in your society. It is more cold. It's less sympathy between the people because people are in this rat race and they're competitors, which gives an overall effect that you are better off overall maybe because the productivity is higher. Here we take everything in a more relaxed way and we pay for it.
Humans are breaking the boundaries of age as never before. And at Merrill Lynch, our expertise in retirement planning can help you get more out of life. And our financial consultants can show you more ways to help assure your future. Because at Merrill Lynch, we believe your world should know no boundaries.
For all those confrontations with the unpredictable, BMW introduces the ultimate defense, the 535i. With an amazingly agile suspension, a computer-controlled engine that constantly adjusts to changing driving conditions, and an ingenious anti-lock braking system. The 535i, it lets those who take driving seriously peacefully coexist with those who don't.
Mom's magic meatloaf is weighing on you like a ton of bricks. Send the bubbles of Alka-Seltzer to the rescue, because speed is what you need to lift the heaviness off your stomach and relieve your heartburn and pounding headache fast. So for fast relief, let the bubbles rise to the occasion. Alka-Seltzer to the rescue. Try new extra strength Alka-Seltzer. More of what you take Alka-Seltzer for.
Another day is turned to night. Close your eyes, say goodnight. Sweet dreams are on their way. All is well as you end the day. Sleep safe, sweet dreams, good night.
Salmon X2 has the one sleep ingredient doctors recommend most to help you fall asleep safely without worry. Salmon X2.
Good night.
American Vision, World View. To understand the nation and to know the world. To see the truth and report it plainly. That is the purpose and the promise of CBS News.
Good evening from CBS News. This is Newsbreak. Oliver North finally has agreed to testify before Congress on his role in the Iran-Contra scandal. The former White House aide will take the stand July 7. A federal grand jury has charged Chrysler with selling, as new, more than 60,000 cars driven by company managers with the odometers disconnected. The indictment says some of the cars were in accidents, repaired, then sold as new.
One word distinguishes the American Express card from the others. Member. And now you can apply for membership over the phone. Just call 1-800-THE-CARD.
The IRS is going to crack down on kids under 14 who make more than $1,000 in investment income. Beginning this year, they'll have to file a return and pay tax on any interest over $1,000. I'm Terrence Smith, CBS News, Washington. The Soviet Union, 7 days in May, will continue in a moment.
This is CBS.
This is the time of life you've had your heart set on for years. And in one moment, your heart can keep you from ever being able to enjoy it. At the West Penn Cardiac Life Center, we can attack heart disease before it attacks you with advanced programs in diagnosis, treatment, and rehabilitation. Don't let heart disease cheat you. See your doctor or call West Penn Hospital. Friends for life.
Oh, wait a minute. I gotta stop and catch my breath. Stand, buddy. You gotta get yourself in better shape.
What do you think I'm out here sweating for? This is my first step toward physical fitness.
Yeah, and it could be your last. Don't push yourself too far too fast. Do what I did. Go see your doctor and get a heart exam and a stress test. Let him recommend the kind of diet and exercise that's right for you. That's the first step to getting in shape.
A Life Quest message from West Penn Hospital. Friends for life.
A new beer from Pittsburgh Brewing. The story on the update.
The Soviet Union, 7 days in May, continues.
These are some of the smallest recipients of Soviet health care. This is a society where husbands are banned from the delivery room. But as part of the new openness, the Soviets agreed to give us a rare look inside at the birth of a baby here. Said one doctor, shaking his head, if you were Soviet TV asking, we'd kick your butts right out of here. Other women in labor are in the delivery room. They wait their turn and they watch. Soulmate witnesses to the birth of Valerie Makarashvili in Maternity Hospital number 4 in Tbilisi, Georgia. As part of Glasnost, the Kremlin has been publicly criticizing Soviet health care, particularly maternity hospitals, which are said to be unsanitary. Infant mortality is on the rise, but the hospitals we were shown looked clean, and the doctors seemed attentive.
We came here expecting Soviet medicine to be primitive, as in the third world, but boy, were we surprised. What we saw may be the best health care the Soviet Union has to offer.
Timuri Chachkiani, a surgeon, prepares to take a biopsy of his patient's lungs. At least in big city hospitals like this Cancer Institute in Tbilisi, they use up-to-date anesthesia and accepted Western techniques.
The examination is finished.
Timuri's wife, Marika, is a doctor too, a cardiologist. Each morning they drive their children to school, Vaniko, 12, Lika, 11, and 4-year-old Georgi, who spends all day at a daycare center, free of charge. There are more women doctors in the Soviet Union than men, but generally they are the ones with the least training, and they're paid less. Marika earns 120 rubles a month, less than $200. Her husband makes twice as much. This is where Marika works, an emergency cardiac care unit where there appears to be no shortage of doctors, nurses, and orderlies. Right now there are 3 patients here, but there are 5 doctors and many more nearby. By U.S. standards, this is an overstaffed facility. So doctors end up doing chores computers do in U.S. hospitals. Here we saw old and new methods side by side. An antiquated oxygen tank alongside contemporary electrocardiogram monitors, an expensive high-tech echo scanner, and a laser therapy gadget described as witchcraft by an American doctor. From what we saw at 5 different facilities, the Soviets are spending millions of dollars on foreign-made medical equipment. We saw some very sophisticated, computerized, state-of-the-art devices. But sometimes doctors can't figure out how to operate the complicated hardware, and frequently the fancy machines break down. Tell me, why you can't send this back to the manufacturer and have them send you a new...
We asked them, but this firm...
Which firm is this?
It is Honeywell.
Yes?
It was one of the last models. So we were unlucky maybe with him.
Maybe he will help us to change our...
Heart disease is on the rise in the Soviet Union, where the diet is high cholesterol and high alcohol. A campaign is underway to encourage better diets and more exercise. They even have their own Jane Fonda. Timuri's mother and father live with them. Lily was a pediatrician who retired early to take care of her grandchildren. Free, live-in childcare. Grandfather Vano, a dermatologist, sometimes sees private patients at home, but mostly he works at a clinic. We're here at a polyclinic, which is the first stop or the bedrock of the people's medicine, the Soviet healthcare system. It's sort of like a neighborhood outpatient clinic in the States, except these polyclinics have come under blistering attacks lately in the Soviet press for sloppiness and low standards. Vano, the skin doctor, works 6 hours a day from 9 to 3 without a break. His nurse draws blood with needles much thicker than the ones we use, and nothing in Vano's clinic or anywhere in Soviet medicine is disposable. As they used to be in the U.S. over 20 years ago, the needles are washed and dropped in boiling water. The clinic has its own pharmacy where prescriptions are made to order in less than purified conditions. In the U.S., all this is done by machine. The Soviets will sometimes admit that their medicine is behind, but they argue at least it's free and available to everyone. But is it? You talk about free medicine, but we have an impression that medicine really isn't free. And if you want really good care, really special health care, that you have to give your doctor a little extra, the nurse a little extra, so that people in some way do end up paying. Is that true?
Patients don't pay nothing for treatment. Nothing.
We were told, however, that giving gifts like roses and extra money to doctors, in effect bribes, is common. One Georgian told us that after her first baby, her husband slipped the doctor $240. One reason for the extra money on the side, and a reason Soviet healthcare is inadequate, is that doctors have been paid less than engineers and other well-educated professionals.
Well, I wouldn't mind if the salary was more.
Gorbachev is giving doctors raises, and he's trying to decentralize. Under his new plan, there'll be more decision-making by the hospitals, and doctors will get bonuses, merit pay for good work, a distinct move away from pure socialized medicine. The problems with Soviet healthcare are a metaphor for the system in general: inefficient, overly centralized, and authoritarian. We asked one doctor if he thought Gorbachev's restructuring, his healthcare perestroika, would solve the problems. He said the plan was like a newborn baby.
Valerie.
Like Valerie. It's too early to say if he'll turn out to be a hero or a hooligan.
To you. And to your great crew, to your great people who do all this. To you.
It's party time at the Gradich's place, and nowadays the party line is glasnost, openness. That's Vitaly Karadich, editor of the weekly magazine Ogonyok. Little Flame. And talk about glasnost, that's best-selling British spy novelist John le Carré, who has made a career of the Cold War. The conversation is not just daring. To a reporter returning to Moscow after more than 10 years, it seems downright dangerous.
The difference between intelligence collecting, which must be a good thing to do, and a secret police, which must be a bad thing to have. And I think Vitaly and I meet very well on that front.
Of course. And you think maybe secret police now have another microphone in this one. It's looking above us all the time. Changes. FBI, CIA, KGB, I don't know what name with number. We must tell them, please, people, work for us. You must know that not you above us, we above you.
Criticizing the KGB on camera may seem risky, but Vitaly Karadich takes chances the way most editors take lunch. Every day.
You see only future editorials.
When Karadich was brought in just 1 year ago, Ogonyok was a downright boring illustrated weekly.
Future editorial. Что им показать можно? Ничего? Да.
Now it's controversial, out on the cutting edge of Mikhail Gorbachev's campaign for glasnost. Karadich has reportedly angered some Soviet officials who believe running the country means never having to say you're sorry.
We publish a lot now.
You've done stories on police corruption. You've done candid reports on what's wrong with Soviet society. You've published the writings of previously banned authors such as Boris Pasternak. What, are you crazy or what?
Maybe, but you see, sometimes I feel that you change norms too, because it's normal life, you know, it's quite normal life to publish Pasternak, to publish about corruption, to catch somebody if he is he commit crime. You see, we must be honest and open.
But still there's the question of why do it? There are many elements in your own society that says, listen, you must not criticize Soviet society because to criticize it as much as you do, you're going to destroy it.
Yes, but I think that society which will be destroyed from normal critic, it's something wrong with this society. I like this society and I'll try to rebuild it.
It's Saturday morning and 1.5 million copies of Karadich's magazine, Ogonyok, have gone on sale. Now, a year ago, you wouldn't have any trouble buying a copy. Now, you have to get out early, get online and get it. Otherwise, they're all sold out, certainly by 10 o'clock. Огонек. Спасибо. In fact, the fellow behind me got the last copy. But Oganyok isn't the only one playing by the new rules.
We were heroic. We prepare article about this memory society, yeah. And they publish a bigger article and sometimes stronger than we do.
And what paper is this in?
Komsomolskaya Pravda. Youth newspaper.
This week, the Communist Youth newspaper has scooped Oganyok by one day with an attack on an ultra-nationalist group called Memory, which is using openness to declare open season on Jews, rock musicians, and Karatich himself. But Glasnost does not mean anything goes. Karatich publishes an article by this reporter raising questions about Glasnost.
And here is Dan Rasser on the most serious place.
Right next to it, a reply from an official Soviet spokesman. All right, well, you think Glasnost represents real fundamental change in Soviet life and in the system. You called it a change in the moral atmosphere of the country.
Yes.
Now, can you finish it? Let's pick up that point. Will it last?
Yes, it depends on us. If we lose, it means we were not ready for this. I'll be loser. You see, my idea will be loser's idea. But I think now we have such a people which fight for this.
A fight that Karatich is waging from well within the new Soviet establishment. He's been a member of the Communist Party for nearly half his 51 years. Glasnost has been very, very good to him.
Доброе утро, это... And having very...
In a society where cars are still luxury, Karatich now rides around in two, one from the magazine and another of his own just like it. And when Zina Karatich needs meat or fruit or vegetables, she doesn't bother with the poorly stocked state stores. She heads straight for Moscow's Central Market, an outpost of capitalism that provides better quality and quantity for a price. Today, she pays 5 rubles for a kilo of veal. That's about $4 a pound. One merchant boasts that this is the most expensive market in Moscow. The Karatich boys still miss the Ukrainian city of Kiev, where the family lived until their father got the Oganyok job. Now they spend their time at Moscow's secondary general education school number 30. On this day, 12-year-old Nikita is lucky. He's going on a field trip. Vitaly Jr., 16, is not so lucky. Tell me about what you dream, what you want to be.
I dream at first to join the university when I end the school. And then I dream to be a good journalist.
Ah, you want to be a journalist like your father.
I think that in our time that journalism is a very important profession. And I like this life.
Well, I can't argue with you. I like it myself, you know. Vitaly Sr. likes it too. But he's willing to put his career on the line for an idea whose time has come. He hopes. What's the single most important thing that people who watch this program should know about Glasnost, the change in the Soviet Union? The single most important thing.
I want you to believe me, you see. I want my children to believe me. Sometimes even my sons told me, it's real. I want to believe me. I want to believe because now you only believe and or not believe. And I play with my life. I play with it with all my life chances. If we lose this, it means you'll be on the same places where you are. For me, it will be catastrophe from many points of view. But I don't want this. I don't want this catastrophe for my country.
This portion of the Soviet Union 7 Days in May is sponsored by Kellogg's Raisin Bran, with 2 scoops of plump, juicy raisins in every package.
All my years in the raisin business, I could never figure out why Kellogg's put 2 scoops of raisins in their Raisin Bran. Why so many raisins? You know what I think? It's that second scoop gets you up a little earlier, gets you singing in the shower. It's Kellogg's. It's delicious. It's special. You're special. You deserve 2 scoops. Maybe we can go in that day and ask for a raise. No.
Fiber-rich Kellogg's Raisin Bran. 2 scoops is a lot of raisins. Knowledge is the hope of the future.
And at Merrill Lynch, our knowledge can help you break down financial boundaries. And our financial consultants can show you more ways to achieve your children's educational goals. Because at Merrill Lynch, we know the class of 2008 begins today.
This is new Coronet Angel Soft Bath Tissue. We've asked some spokes angels to tell you what most impresses them about it. New two-layer Angel Soft Bath Tissue, in the inimitable words of those who have tried it, is Angel Soft.
In Canada, winter comes a little earlier. The mountains loom a little higher. The rivers run a little colder. Some people say you can taste it in the beer. Molson Golden, a little crisper, a little bolder. Molson is Canadian beer.
The concert stage of Frontline in Gorbachev's battle for Glasnost. This year's revolutionary vanguard, rock musicians.
Just look at these guys. When the Soviets talk about the decadent West, this is what they're talking about. These guys, this music. And the irony is, this concert is sponsored by the authorities. It's put on by the communists. It must be an example of that old Marxist maxim, if you can't beat them, join them.
Or exploit them, or co-opt them. Here are the facts. The government is sponsoring more bands. The lyrics are becoming wilder, and for the first time, the authorities have let heavy metal out of the mill. This band's refrain, "Our music will be eternal."
It's just that the whole situation in the country is now much more loose, and musicians, they just understand this and they jump into the bandwagon of Glasnost.
There's Gorbachev, there's Grebenshchikov. This one's the star. Like the Bolsheviks 70 years ago, Boris Grebenshchikov has emerged from the underground to be acclaimed by the masses.
I try never to miss one of his concerts.
His newest song is called Babushka, Grandma. It's about the people who watch over us, punish us when we're naughty. It's about Grandma, it's about government.
Now, anywhere in the Western world, rock stars lead a pretty soft life. But this is where Boris Grebenshchikov lives. It's an old building in downtown Leningrad. Not very well kept, not very clean, really. The walls are peeling. It smells like a New York subway station. The only sign that somebody famous lives here is the writing on the wall. Graffiti left by his fans who come here as if they're coming to a shrine. Boris, we love you. Boris, we won't let you down. Right now, getting down isn't the problem. Boris Grebenshchikov lives on the top floor of a 6-story walk-up. But artistically, he says, poverty is an asset.
Nobody pays us, so we're free.
And what the authorities do is come to Grebenshchikov and ask him nicely for his underground tapes so they can make an official record.
Why are the authorities doing that?
They want to cash in. They receive so much money.
But this is money the musicians don't see much of. Entire bands often get $16 a performance, while the authorities make thousands from the music-starved masses. Sadomarxism. So much leather, so few bikes.
He's enjoying the music.
When they go to a rock concert, do they still feel as if there's something forbidden about it?
Вообще-то да. Yeah. Yes. Yes. There's still this feeling.
Does that make it more exciting?
И от этого интереснее, наверное. Конечно.
But this is serious. Meet Algis Kaspedes, a prominent architect who's designed a hospital, a school, and a rock band to get the message out.
We want to help Gorbachev. We criticize the lazy bureaucracy. This is our protest.
Algis just won first prize in Lithuania's annual Battle of the Bands. One song, called The Medal, is about a leader whose only interest is to collect medals. It's about Brezhnev. And here is mass production, a new path, a 5-year plan. Communism's cliches satirized more broadly in rock than they could be anywhere else. What rock musicians view as modest progress, others see as bourgeois counter-revolution, and a backlash has begun. A leading Soviet poet campaigning in the press has compared rock to that other import from the West, AIDS. Rock does to the soul what AIDS does to the body, he says, and it's spreading just as quickly. Soviet researchers just reported that hard rock causes rockomania, a disease characterized by memory loss and by that cardinal sin, low productivity. But the official view seems to be that it's still preferable to other addictions. Rubenchikov says he's still stunned by the new freedoms. Algis says rock musicians are doing as much as anyone to shake the system, that they're being taken seriously now, which means that they've won the first battle in their version of Star Wars.
Just in case you're beginning to think, well, Moscow's not that much different from my hometown, get a load of this. Vending machine, they have them all over town, but they are different. The glass is in upside down. First, you press the glass down, some water comes up, and they say that cleans the glass. Here's the way it works. For about 2 cents, they will sell you a glass of mineral water. Whoop! Well, let me show it to you again. It takes a while to get used to this thing, right? This is the point. It's a little bit different the way it is at home. Okay, again, this thing is supposed to work this way. You put your money in up here. You put your glass down. And you have your glass of mineral water. Trouble is, it sells the same glass to everybody. Everybody drinks from the same glass. If you've got a thirst for something harder, That's harder to get. That's because of Mikhail Gorbachev's 2-year campaign against alcoholism. Liquor stores are open for only 4 hours on weekdays, so drinkers have to line up for their vodka. It costs more, too, nearly $15 for the cheapest bottle.
Cut the camera.
The Soviets aren't exactly proud of this.
Now he says that we've got to get permission from the local police station.
Americans trying to tape a liquor line are apt to get an argument. The campaign has reduced drinking. Crime and divorce are down. Life expectancy is up, the Soviets say. But there's so much moonshine being made that sugar and yeast are said to be in short supply. One artist's comment on all this: a jar of the homemade brew, the rubber glove inflated by fermenting spirits. The name of this work? Hello, Mr. Gorbachev.
Я снял обувь, и когда проходил в свою комнату,
I saw Mommy lying on the sofa.
на диване. Я спросил,
I asked him, Uncle Volodya, what's wrong with her?
вот, и велел мне
And he
пойти
told
в
me
свою
she was
комнату.
very ill
Когда я проходил в комнату, в
and told me
туалете
to
я
go to my
видел
room.
какие-то капли,
So I went to my room.
красные, в красном
I saw
цвете.
drops in the bathroom. They were red drops.
Потом я
A rare look at a routine day inside a Moscow court. Uncle Volodya, Vladimir Kazantsov, faces a prison term for wounding his live-in girlfriend Olga with a knife. Olga's son, Misha, is one key witness. Kazantsov's chances of beating this charge are slim. He confessed during his police interrogation. He had no right to even see his defense attorney until after the investigation was finished. Defendants don't get read their rights in the Soviet Union. There is no Miranda warning. His defense lawyer, however, came up with this effective trial strategy. Call the defendant's mother to the stand to plead for mercy.
Казанцева Надежда Спиридоновна.
Let him go free. As far as the treatment for alcoholism is concerned, if I could put it this way, I'll do everything I can.
Kazantsov was sentenced to an alcohol rehab program, but his attorney still complained he did not have a proper defense. Lawyers here are demanding the right to represent their clients from the moment of detention, just like in the United States. The nation whose legal system conjures visions of Siberia is considering its own form of Miranda. Most of our images of Soviet justice surround harsh, cruel sentences, the death penalty perhaps, a system based not on law, but more on the arbitrary use of power. Is that image accurate? Most Soviets would say no, but at the same time, it is the Soviets themselves who are debating whether their system could be made more fair.
Maybe you remember that innocent people have been beaten, and because of the methods used on them, had to confess to crimes they hadn't committed.
One of the crusaders for Soviet legal reform is attorney and journalist Arkady Voxberg.
I know and have written about prosecutors who are simply the domesticated pets of their local chiefs. They have forgotten their professional duty, carried out any order given to them.
This new atmosphere in which crooked prosecutors can be exposed changed the life of this man, Sasha Kalugin, a free-spirited Russian artist who has spent much of his adult life dodging the militia. Because of Sasha's looks and his stuttering problem, he's often been rounded up by the militia during major international events in Moscow. Last year, during the Goodwill Games, Sasha once again was arrested and held in Moscow's psychiatric ward number 15. The charge, resisting the authorities.
I've had problems for a long time with the police and with authorities in general.
Sasha had last been rounded up in 1983. He stayed in the psychiatric ward then a full year with no explanations, no criminal charges filed.
Every once in a while, they think they need to hide you.
Well, what else could it have been? I've been thinking, why?
Last year's arrest was different. After 3 months, Sasha's wife, Tamara, received a letter from the investigator admitting the state could not prove the charge, and Sasha was set free. That had never happened before. To Sasha Kalugin, legal reform literally means he is no longer afraid of the militia. His confidence was put to the test during our taping, when the militia stopped to ask for our documents, and then began taking down Sasha's name.
No, we want to know, what have we done wrong? What have we done wrong?
The militiaman explained they only stopped to see who was filming.
What kind of a company? There's no problem? No problem. This man's not in trouble?
No problem. You see, I am an optimist by nature. My wife is the pessimist.
For me, I don't know. I am still cautious and mistrusting of the authorities. I really don't know what to think now. I just have this great feeling of mistrust.
Changes in the legal system here have opposition. There are conservatives who don't see the American way as anything the Soviets should admire. To them, defendant's right is a code phrase that allows too many criminals to walk free. They don't see the justice in that. This is courtroom number 36 in a district court in Moscow. They call it the People's Court. Behind me, 7 defendants, all of them juvenile, are about to be sentenced for a variety of charges, including robbery and assault. One of the juveniles is acquitted. The rest, 2 young women and 4 young men, are sentenced to a labor camp.
The sentence for all the crimes committed should be 3 years at a re-educational minimum security labor camp with no confiscation of property.
Legal reform will not change the Soviet concept of justice. In America, we believe in the certainty of rights. The Soviets believe in the certainty of punishment.
Freedom. It's becoming what you want to be. Doing what you want to do. Involving yourself in what you value most. Merrill Lynch can help you achieve that freedom. We believe the client always comes first, so we can help you find the best choices from our world of opportunities. Because at Merrill Lynch, we believe your world should know no boundaries.
Cheese, glorious cheese.
One of the beautiful things about eating cheese is all the calcium it gives you.
Cheese, glorious cheese.
It's one of nature's most concentrated sources of calcium.
What else is so wonderful? Real cheese is always in style. It's cheese, marvelous cheese, glorious cheese.
Well, I knew Trident didn't cause cavities, but help fight them? No, I didn't know that.
It's true. Chewing Trident after sugary snacks reduces the acids on your teeth that can cause cavities.
It couldn't happen to a better gum.
Trident, good to chew and fights cavities, too.
You were always my favorite. And now you've never been better.
Because only sugar-free Certs has NutraSweet. And it's never been better. Sugar-free Certs, now with NutraSweet.
It's a question of taste. If you had your pick of 2 cereals, both with 100% nutrition, would you pick the one with just one kind of flake? Or Kellogg's Just Right with 3 different kinds of flakes, plus hearty rolled oats, plump raisins, sweet juicy dates, and crisp crunchy nuts? You're not alone. 3 out of 4 people picked Just Right over every other high vitamin cereal. There was no question of nutrition. It was simply a question of taste. Kellogg's Just Right with fruit or whole grain.
In the past 10 years or so, some 200,000 Russian citizens have immigrated to America hoping to find a better way of life. Last January, about 50 of those immigrants came back to the Soviet Union saying they were disillusioned with life in America and just wanted to be back in the USSR. This is the story of 2 of those returnees, Anatoly and Olga Gross.
Come on in. Don't be afraid. A lot of people in this apartment.
You know, I'm not political man. I'm not, I'm just a musician, that's all.
There were no political reasons why you left the Soviet Union?
No, at all. You know, I never touched political problems here. And they never touched me. That's all.
As songwriters, Toly and Olga Gross lived a very good life in the USSR. They had 2 cars, an art collection, and they made more money than a Soviet general. They left Russia 8 years ago because Olga's father, who was living in New York,
told them they could do even better in the States.
We called each other very often, and he told Tolly that it would be very easy to make a career over there. He promised a recording deal, so we believed.
Record producer Mikey Harris, now with CBS, befriended Olga and Tolly Gross.
His father-in-law promised him a record deal.
You better believe that he had contacts.
And in fact?
No. He was a lonely old man who was dying.
After 40 million copies of my records, what were sold here, I came in America and I got to drive cab.
You got?
I got to drive cab.
He had written a song called How Are You America. I heard that. Thought it would make a great single. And wheeled and dealed my way through the studio time.
You thought that song could have been a hit?
Yes, it did. Still do.
From Russia, Tolly, period.
You were on local television in New York, weren't you?
Yes.
They even said, this is New American Idol. Mick Jagger, move over. And I remember I watched it and I cried.
Jagger, move over, they said.
I thought we were very close.
They said, Mick Jagger, move over?
Yes.
Here comes Tolly?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we were going into session the day the Korean airliner was shot down.
By the Soviet Union?
Yes, and circumstance really got involved.
So here you're recording a Russian singer.
As they're shooting down an airliner.
That would seem to make it a tough sell.
In one place, Tolly was a star. In Brooklyn's Brighton Beach neighborhood, home to 50,000 Russian immigrants.
I went, to play in Russian nightclubs.
So that the only people who heard your music were other Russians. You couldn't cross over that wall to the American music market.
We just left the fight. We didn't want to fight anymore.
Yes.
But my father died in America.
The what?
My father died in America.
Mm-hmm.
We were alone over there, without any member of the family.
Do you think they ever became Americanized?
Realistically, probably the only one that did was their son, Philip. And, woo, that's going to be a transition and a half.
And now you're only. For Philip, I feel that I'm nervous about him. He's a very complicated boy because he was born here, I brought him over there when he was 5, and now I brought him back. He's a little bit broken.
Like in America, right? You could go to a store and buy anything you want. And here, you have to look around the whole Moscow to get, to get something, one thing. They have only one thing, like oranges. They have 10 or 15 brands there. Lots of companies. They have only one company for each thing.
And you take what they have and that's it?
Yeah. You don't have no choice. You have it. You have to take it right away before they...
My mother and my sister, they can't understand. He's too independent for them sometimes. He doesn't feel at home yet.
You're absolutely certain, in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, that as a Jew, you simply cannot stay and work in this country?
Да, не могу.
No, I cannot. Absolutely.
Не могу.
Sure.
As a Jew, did you consider leaving the country?
Никогда.
Never.
I want to make it clear. As soon as I get exit visa, next morning I will go. No doubt about it. Here I was born to play piano, and I like to play piano, and when people gave me opportunity to play, I played. But I cannot forget what's happened with me for 8 years, all bitter, bad things.
Vladimir Felsman is one of about 11,000 refuseniks. People who have asked for exit visas and been refused.
what happened? In 2 hours after I make clear my desire to leave the country, my friend who used to work in TV and radio station Moscow called me and asked me, Volodya, what's happened? What's wrong with you? We just got a call from Central Committee and people said, never play again his music. What's happening?
He does most of his playing now in the cramped Moscow apartment he shares with his wife Anna and their 4-year-old son. The Soviet authorities assign him concerts around the country. It's a long way from Carnegie Hall. Like the vast majority of refuseniks, Vladimir Felsman is Jewish. But he says it is artistic, not religious freedom that he seeks in the West.
My only crime was, and still is, that I simply want to decide myself when, what, and where to play. It is nothing against Soviet country, Soviet system, or just high officials. But Soviets think that if you ask for exit visa, you are kind of betrayer the motherland. It is very stupid. It is simply stupid.
David Schreier is a writer and a medical doctor. His wife Mila, an English teacher. They applied for exit visas the same year Vladimir Felsman did, and like him, were turned down again and again.
Getting into the position of a refusnik, you become an outlaw. You no longer have your former position, you no longer have your former job, because automatically you're forced to leave your job in case you have to apply the document.
Excuse me, you're placed in a kind of limbo.
Limbo, yes. Limbo.
How are you? I'm very well. How are you? When we met the Schreiers, 8 long and bitter years were coming to an end. Finally, their visas had been granted.
This is Bill Freeman.
How do you do? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, thanks.
Please welcome. It was time to say goodbye to old friends.
May I kiss you too today? Okay. For the camera. Please, you're welcome.
Do you find yourself thinking, well, maybe we should stay, maybe things are going to change now?
Oh, no. The decision has been made 8 years ago, and now that's our purpose and the only dream we have. We've done away with everything in this country. We no longer love it.
These are my books in 45 languages.
Anatoly Rybakov is also Jewish and a writer, but the only place he's going is to the top of the bestseller list.
You were telling me about this, what was happening here. You were showing me this manuscript.
At 76, Rybakov is coming out with his 11th novel this year, a novel he wrote 20 years ago.
But this was draft 1, huh?
Children of the Arbat is a literary bombshell, the first Soviet work to deal, frankly, with the mass arrest and deportations of the Stalin era, a time when Rybakov himself spent 3 years in Siberian exile. The book was promised to the public twice before and suppressed.
My novel is 20 years old. And I have had many offers to have it published in the West. But I didn't give it to the West. Because this novel is needed by my people. Is needed by my country, and it must be published here. And as an artist, that is all that is important to me. That way, I can tell my people the truth about themselves and their history.
Anatoly Rybakov is making a good living because of his talent. He is making literary history because of his patience.
I'm a Russian writer. So it's impossible for me to give a refusnik permission to leave. Understand, I can't do it. If I could, I would give them permission to go.
Soon after our visit, David and Mila and Max Schreier left the Soviet Union for an uncertain new life in the West. They have no plans to return. Vladimir Felsman is hopeful that soon he too will be free to go. And maybe someday, free to come back.
If someday they will change a little bit their minds and will make this country more open, I will be back here and play in Moscow for my public with great pleasure. No doubt about it.
Americans are breaking the boundaries of age as never before. And at Merrill Lynch, our expertise in retirement planning can help you get more out of life. And our financial consultants can show you more ways to help assure your future. Because at Merrill Lynch, we believe your world should know no boundaries.
Try a double fudge bar.
Oh, I can't eat chocolate. I can't. So, it looks so rich. I can't. So creamy. I can't. So sinful. I can't. I really can't.
It's from Weight Watchers.
Oh, yes, I can.
Weight Watchers double fudge bars.
So chocolatey, so smooth. And it's from Weight Watchers. So it says, yes, I can.
Folks, it's official. The big mouth is now the fresh mouth, thanks to new super strength Polident. Now with a minty mouthwash ingredient, so it freshens dentures as it cleans them. Try new Polident Green. It freshens as it cleans.
Are you still collecting the same old stuff? We'll start something new with stamps, especially now with our new American Wildlife issue. 50 beautifully detailed animal, bird, reptile, and insect stamps, each commemorating America's natural wildlife heritage, now at your post office. And remember, unlike some things, once you collect stamps, you can enjoy their beauty forever.
MasterCard salutes the historic flight of Voyager. Back on Earth, pilots Dick Rutan and Gina Yeager are on the move, and they've never needed MasterCard more. They fly with it, drive with it, even guarantee hotel reservations with it, and of course, celebrate.
Cheers.
To the possibilities.
With MasterCard. For people who go the distance, MasterCard. Master the possibilities.
This CBS News special will continue.
The closed society behind the ancient majesty of the Great Wall of China is still somewhat of a mystery to the Western world. Hi, I'm Patty Burns. Join me for a very special half hour when we'll really take the time to see the sights, sample the food, and share the smiles of a country with over 1 billion citizens. All of this and an historic trip of the Pittsburgh Symphony as we take a closer look inside China, Monday, July 6th at 9:30 on KDKA TV2.
Shop and Save starts off this summer right with the June National Brand Sale. Take advantage of hot savings on national brands in every department throughout the store. This week, get 3 one-pound quarters of Bluebonnet margarine for $1. Wake up with Tropicana orange juice, 99 cents for 12 ounces. Great sandwiches start with our chip chopped ham, 99 cents a pound, and it's chipped fresh. Take home Heinz Big Keg of Ketchup, 99 cents for the 32-ounce bottle. So shop for the difference at Shop and Save.
Meet medicine's life-saving elite and watch them at work in the high-tech world of the trauma center. It's Critical Minutes on LifeQuest.
Friday at 10 on KDKA TV2.
From Eyewitness News, this is Newsbreak.
Good evening. In the news tonight, a warning for women drivers in Jefferson Borough. Beware of a rapist using a flashing emergency light. The agreement has been reached. Oliver North will tell all about the Iran arms scandal. And Pittsburgh Brewing is taking on the big boys with a new beer and a patriotic campaign.
And the Muggies will return tomorrow.
And in sports, the Bucks take on the Expos. We will have highlights and Surfer Girls Look Out. The Beach Boys are in town. We'll let you listen in on the update.
Only at your participating Pittsburgh Metro Chrysler Plymouth dealers. Get $1,500 cash back on Chrysler LeBaron Coupe priced under $12,000. Hurry, this offer ends June 30th.
This is Volgograd, the city on the Volga River, but it used to be Stalingrad back during World War II. The city of steel, named after the man of steel. And they still make steel here. The steel worker has always been a heroic figure in Soviet labor. In America these days, steel is a troubled industry. We thought we'd see how it was doing here. To find out, we met 2 people, Yuri and Galya Shetka.
Each year, it gets harder and harder to work. Not so much physically, but in my moral relationship with work. It's gotten harder for me to make my peace with all the shortages. It's the same with our supplies. We don't get enough, or they are no good. It's the same all over the Soviet Union.
7:45. After changing clothes, the workday begins with a roll call. The man in charge talks about the jobs to be done today and asks for questions. Hill Street Blues with a difference.
Finally, they brought the scrap that we needed. But that's only half the problem. We still have to unload it from the train. Let's not waste any time. And let's not make any alloys that haven't been ordered. Be careful with the pouring ladles. You've only got 2 of them working now, and you won't have any left if they break. Okay, that's it.
Yuri and Galia both work here. He's a team leader at the last furnace down this road. It's a good job and pays almost $800 a month. She drives one of these cranes over my head and earns about $350. That makes them one of the best paid couples in the Volgograd area, probably. They work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. They and their son Dennis have a 3-room apartment. Living room, bedroom, kitchen. Rent about $20 a month.
This is our sitting room. Our son sleeps on the couch. This is my kitchen, my second working place. This is where I do breakfast, lunch, and dinner for my family. You'd better ask them if they like it. But in here, everything is done the way I like it.
Sunday is a day off, a chance to go down to the market where farmers sell goods from private plots, and nowadays, goods straight off collective farms. You can see what's on the shelves, what you might have for Sunday dinner.
7 rubles per chicken.
Big crowds in this market today. That's because there are no shortages here. Food is more expensive. What might cost 2 rubles in a government store, if there were any, would cost, say, 3 rubles here if it were being sold by a collective farm, maybe 4 if it had come off a private plot. People are willing to pay that because the food is available and fresh and good. One other note. About 2 years ago, I remember arguing long and hard to film in a market like this in Moscow. This time, we were invited straight in.
Our Moscow escort did object when we photographed a beggar. Other reactions were mixed.
Look at the price of these. Disgusting.
Sometimes I just can't face all the sloppiness and the negligence. I talk with the guys and with our chief. We all agree to keep trying harder. We are gonna work. But then somebody does something wrong. Something's not ready. The alloy doesn't come out right, or something. We talk to the boss again, to the party officials. They promise to make changes. Well, they've begun, but it's not enough.
You are talking about perestroika, about reconstruction? Oh, there has been some, but not the sort of steps that we would like.
You would be for more rewards for people who do well and some way of getting rid of people who don't work?
I absolutely agree with that. If I were running things at work, I would have taken those kinds of measures a long time ago. Take my brigade, for example. We worked as we should for a month. We filled all the orders. Nothing broke down. But then we discovered we had been given bad quality bricks because one of them exploded inside the furnace. So we've lost time doing the repairs, and we are the ones who suffered for it.
That's why they walked about on melting scrap to repair the bricks. We saw no safety manuals here.
I think if everybody fulfilled their responsibilities at work conscientiously, if the bosses demanded that of them, then everything would be much, much better. But right now, things aren't better. There are guilty people. The plan isn't fulfilled, but we are the ones who suffer. That's still the kind of system we have.
They are looking for something long buried, their past. Men and women who made a difference in politics, science, the arts. Heroes of war and peace. This is Moscow's Novodevichy Cemetery. For the past 10 years, the public was not allowed to see what is in here. The cemetery was closed for repairs, they said. Now it's open again, and as you can see, the Russians are coming. They're coming from everywhere to search for the familiar names. A simple marker for Anton Chekhov. And flowers for a man who died in 1852, but whose novel, Dead Souls, earned him immortality. Nikolai Gogol. For some, the memories are as fresh as the flowers. But there are mysteries as well as memories here. Nadezhda Alliluyeva, Stalin's wife. She is thought to have killed herself, but most of these people don't know that. And who could forget that face? Nikita Khrushchev. He tried to reform the Soviet system in his day. It cost him his job and his place in official Soviet history books. He is buried here instead of at the Kremlin wall with all the other Soviet leaders. Are you surprised that he's not in the Kremlin?
Maybe that's what he wanted.
Я этого не знаю.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're not surprised?
Вы не удивлены? Это уже немножко.
That's a little bit one of those questions.
But if the Soviets can rewrite history, they can't actually change it.
Khrushchev их реабилитировал.
This woman's sister and brother-in-law were purged by Stalin and rehabilitated by Khrushchev.
All we should do is thank him. History will prove it. There is no present without the past.
We invited Jonathan Sanders, one of two CBS News consultants on Soviet matters, to talk about change in this place where the present meets the past. Despite the new openness, his fellow expert, Dmitry Symes, a former citizen of the Soviet Union, was denied a visa. We asked Sanders about resistance to the new reforms.
The parameters opening up have made many people very unhappy. When you begin to drain a swamp, you're bound to find a lot of reptiles. And Gorbachev and the progressives are finding those reptiles, are finding the enemies of change, are finding the people who don't like the more westernized, more open attitudes, and they're encountering great problems and beginning to get this restructuring and this glasnost and this acceleration and this democratization of Soviet society going again.
This portion of the Soviet Union 7 Days in May was sponsored by Merrill Lynch. At Merrill Lynch, we believe your world should know no boundaries.
Knowledge is the hope of the future. And
And at Merrill Lynch, our knowledge can help you break down financial boundaries. And our financial consultants can show you more ways to achieve your children's educational goals. Because at Merrill Lynch, we know the class of 2008 begins today.
Enjoying that crispy cereal, Louis?
Mm-hmm.
Side of corn, side of rice, sure makes it crispy. But if the corn's crispier, why, once I ate a bowl in Dugan's Apple Grove. The crunch from the corn side shook the tree so that now, come picking time, the Dugans don't need ladders just to crunch the corn side of Crispix.
Grandpa, last time the right side was crispier.
Right side? Well, you're thinking the kid over at Milford that... Kellogg's Crispix is crispy times 2.
It all started 68 years ago. What followed were the most extraordinary driving machines of their day. But none more extraordinary than this. The 168 horsepower BMW 325i. The latest expression of our 7-decade passion for driving.
Get your spaghetti ready. Get ready for new Ragu Thick and Hearty Spaghetti Sauce. Our thickest, heartiest sauce ever. Made with lots of plump, juicy tomatoes. Special seasonings and spices for a zesty, full-bodied tomato taste. Now your spaghetti's ready. New Ragu Thick and Hearty. Our thickest, heartiest sauce ever.
For decades, the superpowers have eyed each other across the Iron Curtain with deep suspicion. 7 days in the Soviet Union are not enough to strip reporters of their skepticism about Soviet intentions. Some of the Soviets interviewed in our broadcast may not be what they seem. We cannot know yet whether glasnost or perestroika are merely tremors in Soviet society or something closer to an earthquake. The socialist state clearly has run out of economic miracles, if indeed it ever had any. Its people, stripped of incentives, are being outperformed by the economic powerhouses of Western Europe, Japan, and the United States. For the Soviet leadership, change is vital. But change here is always unpredictable. This is, after all, a deeply conservative society. We cannot yet know whether this exciting time represents opportunity or danger for the West. For 7 days in May, it was for us an important opportunity to observe this nation. When a superpower stirs, the world holds its breath. For CBS News, Dan Rather in Red Square, Moscow. Good night.